feel that you do care about us because we are the future of America. So I'd like to give you a brief respite from political questions and controversy and ask you what the single best piece of advice you can give college students with political aspirations.
Political advice to college students with political aspirations.
Well, first of all, obviously, get involved. The future of this country rests with you. I would not be running for President of the United States if it was not that I believe the next generation of Americans deserve a better, freer, more prosperous nation than the one that I inherited. I think that now you have enormously increased ways of communicating over the internet. Whether you happen to like blogs or not like blogs, the fact is that they have changed politics in America in many ways. The dialogue and the discussion and the broadening of it has been enormous. I also think that you ought to be associated either with a campaign or a cause that you believe in. I think there's nothing more illuminating, there's nothing more educational, and there's nothing more beneficial than to support something that you believe in a political campaign and watch this flawed and problem-filled process of ours go forward and the American people reach decisions and conclusions and pick their leaders and decide on our future. And I hope that the message to all young Americans, as well as all, but particularly the next generation, is that it does matter. It does matter what decisions are made now, because the decisions made now are going to directly impact your future and your children and your grandchildren. I'm happy, frankly, with the new means of communication that we have, the internet and a lot of other ways, and a proliferation of television channels, and a lot of other things that we now have greater sources of information and knowledge. Some of them I strenuously disagree with, but the fact is that all I can say that I believe as President of the United States, my first job is to inspire a generation of Americans to serve a cause greater than their self-interest. And I believe that that is true of America today, probably more than at any time in the past. You look at the men and women in the military, you look at Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, Teach for America, you look at all of these volunteer activities that young Americans have engaged in, that it's my job to provide them with the ability to participate. And thank you for being here. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There, he's got it.
Thank you for coming out. In the past, you've alienated a great deal of conservatives who believe that conservative principles are always the answer by stepping across the aisle. And the third point of a vice president is the opportunity to groom himself to be president in the next cycle. Are you going to pick a conservative...
Or the cycle after that, yes.
Perhaps. Are you going to pick a vice president that conservatives can actually rally around in the future, or are you going to give us someone who will cause us to want to stay home, perhaps? Thank you.
Well, sir, may I say, at least according to the polling data we have, we're doing very well with our base. We have a lot more work to do to energize our base. We also have to energize our base who cares a lot about our lack of fiscal responsibility, who are very angry. We're also going to have to energize our base that cares about this nation's security, which is probably, and when we look at the many challenges we face, are probably very significant. I will choose I will nominate a person to be vice president, my running mate, who shares my principles, my values, and my priorities. And that's the best that I can tell you. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Here she comes.
Well,
This is the slowest one here, Tina.
I want to
She's from Phoenix, that's why. Yeah, yeah.
I want to thank you, not just coming from to Las Cruces, but I know you landed in El Paso. So you get to see the border, and I am from El Paso. My husband was the former mayor of El Paso, and he used to say that when Juarez sneezes, El Paso was catching a cold. So I want to thank you again, and my question deals with health care. My husband was diagnosed with a brain disorder, the same one that afflicted Senator Dominici. And at 51, he did not have long-term care. And it was so devastating that totally destroyed our finances. So I had to take him to my family's country home, which is Spain. I got to see firsthand how social care was so much affordable. He was a fighter. Although it undermined his muscle, he lost his voice, I was able to provide better care for him in another country than in our own. And so I want to know about your health care plan. How can it be affordable? How can we change that? Why did I have to take him someplace else so he could die in a better place than in his own country?
Thank you, and please accept the sympathy of all of us, and thank you for his service. I'm very grateful. There is a health care crisis in America. We would be, if it were not for the energy crisis, we'd be talking a lot more about health care issues. And we have to reform health care in America, and we have to make insurance available and affordable for all Americans. I do not believe that means a government-run health care system is the most efficient or what we need. And we need to have policies that encourage home health care as opposed to institutionalized care. And we need to treat people on an outcome basis that don't pay for every test or every procedure, every visit to the doctor, but treat them for a period of time and then pay that provider. There's a program now for senior citizens that is not as wide as I'd like to see, where it's called cash and counseling, and seniors are given money every month, and then they're able to decide how they want to pay for their own health care. It's remarkable, the savings that have been realized. But in cases like your husband, where they're basically uninsurables, the quote uninsurables, people with chronic diseases and such as the terrible affliction that befell your husband, and I know he appreciated your love and care, but we should have what we call government-approved plans so that we pool federal and state money together and establish wide risk pools so that there is affordable and available health insurance for people like you and your husband. We cannot leave the, quote, uninsurables or chronic disease victims without the access to care. And so it's going to have to be a federal and state combination, providing significant federal money from the federal government, and we are going to have that as a major part of health care reform, because we can't allow any American citizen to experience what your husband experienced. And I'm sorry that it happened. And I please accept my deep sympathy and our prayers. I thank you for his service. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator McCain, for coming. Also, we pray for you every day, my family and I, to make sure you're safe and secure in your health and everything. But also, I'd like to ask a question. My dad used to work for Earthlink, and now they've moved to India. So what would you do? What steps would you take to ensure that multinational companies would stay in America?